Good evening. We begin with shots fired in the West End and a 14-year-old suspect taken into custody.
A public school in the area was put into hold and secure amid the incident. That precaution has since been lifted. Our Sean Leathong is at the scene near Islington and the 401, and he joins us live with the latest. What have you learned, Sean?
Well, Michelle and Nathan, we learned that just after 2:30 this afternoon, police were called for a call of firearm discharge about 5 kilometers from here at Kipling and Finch. There's an apartment building there where police are holding the scene, but things seem to have ended right around here. I'm just going to step out of frame. If you take a look at the car behind me, there's a red Mazda CX-5, which is where 2 people were located a little around 3 o'clock today. One of them was taken into custody. I did speak to somebody working at the gas station. They said that both occupants of the car ran off, and one was arrested. That is the 14-year-old boy that you mentioned off the top. The other one police were looking for some time, and because they were looking, police were scrambling in the entire area. Now, not far from where I'm standing is a Walmart Plaza at Islington and the 401, and a neighborhood just south of there police were searching in that area around 3 to 3:30 this afternoon. And you mentioned there's a junior school. Elmley Junior School was placed in hold and secure. Parents obviously were a little bit distraught with what was going on, but they were reassured that all the kids were safe and there was no harm at that time. As I mentioned, the firearms discharged at 2:30. Nobody was hit by any firearms, but police did pursue anyways, and they did mention that they took a 14-year-old into custody while they were searching for the other person. They were confident that the person had left the area of Islington and the 401. So at about 3:30 today, they lifted the hold and secure. Parents were able to get their kids from the area, but the investigation has focused on this gas station that you see behind me. The Toronto Police Forensic Unit has been looking at this car for some time, and you can see it is taped off. So police are looking for another suspect in this situation. They're just confident they are not in this place and there's no danger to the public at this time while they still investigate. And as we said, a 14-year-old is in custody today. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan and Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Residents of an apartment complex near Jane and Wilson are reeling after an overnight fatal shooting.
One man is dead, and police say they're now looking for 4 suspects. CTV's Mike Walker has been following this investigation and brings us the very latest. Mike.
Well, Nathan, Michelle, there's been a heavy police presence throughout the day at the apartment complex here on Falstaff Avenue. Investigators say the 4 suspects were all armed with handguns. The victim is a 20-year-old man. A forensic investigator uses a metal detector to search for shell casings outside an apartment building complex on Falstaff Avenue near Jane, where a 20-year-old man was shot and killed.
7, 8, something like that. He was like, and very rapid fire.
My wife, she came to the balcony and she saw that white car is just bang, bang and goes away from here.
Gunshots rang out just before midnight. Toronto police have identified the victim as A.J. Simpson. He was rushed to hospital where he died from his injuries. Homicide investigators say they are looking for 4 suspects who pulled up in a white SUV.
There were 4 persons that exited the vehicle. I can tell you that all 4 of the individuals were armed with handguns. There were several shots that were fired.
The crime scene is extensive, spanning across the courtyard of the apartment complex, where dozens of evidence markers are scattered. At this point, investigators can't say if Simpson was targeted.
But when he hits home like this one, it hurts more. You know, at that young age, you know, his life is cut short.
Eddie Emily knew the victim since he was a young child. He says Simpson used to live across the hall from him and would still frequent the area after moving away.
I don't know him to be a bad individual. I mean, he was more quiet. He wasn't a rowdy individual. I cannot predict like what he would have with somebody that they would choose to, you know, open fire on him.
Police say officers responded within 2 minutes of the shooting, but it's an all too familiar scene for a community that is once again reeling.
It's happened in my 7 years of living here, probably 2 other times. I was alarmed. It's not nice when it's on your front doorstep.
I was frightened. We just want a safe community where we can enjoy our lives here.
Police have stepped up patrols along Falstaff. They say community outreach workers and counselors are now being deployed to the area to address any safety concerns in the wake of the city's 42nd homicide of the year. Now, there are several surveillance cameras here at the apartment complex and at the community center next door. Investigators say they are combing through that footage right now to try and get a better description of the suspects and their vehicle. In the meantime, they continue to appeal for witnesses. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Mike. And police are investigating after shots were fired in Lawrence Heights. Police responded to Pengarth Court near Allen Road and Rennie Avenue just after 2:30 this morning. They found evidence of gunfire at the scene, but no injuries have been reported. Police say they don't have a description of the suspect at this time. The Liberals have lost their decades-long stronghold on Toronto's St. Paul's. Conservative candidate Don Stewarts wins the by-election. We'll have more on the surprising upset coming up a little later in the newscast.
But first, let's take a live look outside this evening. We certainly had some active weather today, periods of rain and the potential for more unstable conditions into the night. You can see some cloud cover there, but at least downtown doesn't look like it's raining. Jessica Smith will give us the specifics. What are you seeing?
Bit of a break for now, but we have had rain off and on through that midpoint of our afternoon right up until now, and the chance of rain is going to linger, but the bulk of it has started to push past us. Over the last few hours, we've seen it kind of roll in pretty slowly, and then as we step into the evening, there is a little bit of clearing on the way, but we have a little ways to go first. Temperature-wise, we're still in the mid-20s. It still feels into the upper 20s, low 30s, so the humidex is still very much a factor. Through the islands over towards Pearson, it's significantly cooler the closer to the island you get. We're sitting at 27 near Pearson. Tonight, it is still very warm. We're still holding on to temps above seasonal, and we still have a bit of a humidex to contend with. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we step into the last few days of June, but right now, back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Jess. Terrifying moments today for two workers who found themselves hanging 56 stories up a high-rise.
The pair were working on the St. Regis Hotel on a swing stage when some of the ropes on the suspended platform broke. CTV's Beth McDonnell is live and brings us more on the dramatic rescue. Beth.
Nathan, this plaza behind me was full of people worrying about the two workers. They were hanging from a broken swing stage. To give you a sense of just how high up you had to look, you really had to get your neck back up there because this dramatic rescue unfolded near the top of one of those towers. Cables attached to a swing stage on the St. Regis Hotel flap in the wind. The aftermath of two workers left dangling around 1 in the afternoon, more than 50 stories high near the top of the skyscraper.
I noticed that there was a bulge on the side of the building that kind of looked like window cleaners.
Corinne Galvin, like many in the downtown core, were out for lunch, panicked about the situation above.
We weren't allowed to go anywhere near this area in case, I guess, it fell, which would be horrendous. So we were forced all the way around the buildings.
We looked out and we could see the thing, I don't know exactly what it was, swinging back and forth over the roof of St. Regis. It was concerning. Like, this didn't look what it was supposed to look like, and we were concerned something was going to fall off the edge.
When Toronto firefighters arrived, they quickly went to the roof to figure out how to rescue the workers.
There was two workers on a swing stage. This swing stage was on the 56th floor. There was 4 ropes, and 2 of them had broken in the winds. The stage was loose. It was being bantered around by the winds.
Crews managed to get the workers off the swing stage and down a couple of floors to a sub-level where they were brought inside to safety and secure the swing stage to the building.
It is such a dangerous operation that we do need a lot of crews up there, safety officers and rescue sector officers that make sure everything's done properly. The crews are trained in this.
It just seems to be mayhem around here today.
Employment lawyer Soma Ray Ellis was working on the 37th floor in a tower kitty corner to the hotel. She says the dangling workers raises a lot of questions.
Well, they're going to have to check what happened here. Why did they get stuck? How did they get stuck? Were they following protocol? Because again, it's a very dangerous job that they're doing.
Firefighters say the Ministry of Labor is being brought in to investigate. Firefighters say they were able to get on scene and bring the workers to safety in about 15 minutes. Paramedics were also here on scene. They say that they declined having a medical assessment here on the ground and then gave them a handshake. So this is a very good news story for what could have been a very terrible, terrifying day for people who are the workers that were left up there and those on the ground. We've also reached out to the St. Regis Hotel for more information. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell.
Thank you, Beth. Toronto police released details of a major carjacking investigation and some progress being made.
$10 million in vehicles have been recovered and more than 100 arrests made. The GTA is still plagued with violent carjackings and home invasions, frightening people going about their everyday lives. Now, the Provincial Carjacking Joint Task Force has announced a major disruption in these thefts. Between September 2023 and March 2024, they've recovered 177 stolen vehicles valued at $10 million, making 124 arrests and laying nearly 750 charges and seizing 8 firearms.
Although auto thefts in 2024 are down 28% in Toronto, these crimes have unfortunately contributed to an increase in home invasions, violent robberies, and gun violence throughout our region.
Project Titanium further put the brakes on the work of thieves after March, recovering 23 stolen vehicles valued at $5 million. Police say the network of criminals is local, provincial, and international, with thefts traced to Africa, the Middle East, and South America, with many of the offenders underage or out on bail.
Law enforcement is just one part of the solution. It's really concerning that 44% of those arrested were out on bail at the time of their arrest, and 61% were subsequently released on bail yet again.
Police say stealing vehicles remains a top generator for organized crime and requires a collective effort to stop the violence and the thefts.
An Ontario widow wants to know why her husband's death at the hands of a police officer was deemed not serious.
She's taking the Ontario Provincial Police to court to ask a judge to review the decision. As CTV's John Woodward reports, it's a case that could change the way police discipline is handled in Ontario.
I think shocked is the best word.
Shocked first at the tragic accident that killed her husband, Tyler Dorzik, struck and killed in 2020 by a speeding OPP cruiser in Midland out on a coffee run. And shocked at how she was treated by Ontario's provincial police force when she complained. She was sent a letter that deemed the misconduct in the case was not serious, denying her a right to a hearing with no explanation.
It was not serious. I don't understand.
It turned out she wasn't the only one. Letters obtained by CTV News through a Freedom of Information request showed the force was writing boilerplate letters to many complainants. On Tuesday, Courtney took the OPP to court.
We are hopeful that what the court says will send a strong message not only to the OPP but to other police forces that when they're making these kind of determinations, at the very least, they need to transparently explain themselves.
The OPP's lawyer stood by the force's action, saying this is a discipline process in an employment matter between an employer and an employee. As for the public, their rights are minimal.
During the hearing, the OPP lawyer was peppered with questions from the panel of judges who asked why the public complainant shouldn't have full transparency.
One judge asked, the heading for your section is public complaints. It starts with the public, doesn't it?
This is a situation that has to change, that there is a duty to explain why these things happened, and if there's no discipline, why there's no discipline.
The lawyer representing the driver, Constable Jamie McBain, said she wanted to apologize for the terrible accident.
There isn't a day that goes by that she doesn't think about this, and she is going to, through myself, apologize on the record and provide her condolences.
I can't bring him back, but I can do my best to make sure no one else is treated this way.
The judges can overturn the decision, and as for the larger issue of having a transparent process, Darthenay hopes the OPP brass take that seriously. John Woodward, CTV News.
The City of Toronto has launched a new campaign focused on lithium-ion battery safety. This campaign will run for a month and is focused on bringing awareness to the fire risks associated with lithium-ion batteries and how to properly use and dispose of them. These types of batteries are commonly found in e-bikes, e-scooters, vacuums, and e-cigarettes. In 2023, there were 55 fires started by lithium-ion batteries.
A major victory for the federal Conservatives in Toronto.
Don Stewarts emerged the winner in last night's by-election in Toronto's St. Paul's. CTV's Rahim Ladani is live with the details on what is a major upset. Rahim.
Michelle and Nathan, this riding has been the textbook definition of a Liberal stronghold for more than 3 decades. And now that it's slipped away, the Prime Minister's leadership is under the microscope. The lights are on inside Conservative candidate Don Stewarts' campaign office. And while no one appears to be inside, those passing by say Stewart flipping their riding blue sends a clear message.
It's time for a change, and I'm not a Trudeau fan, so there couldn't have been a better outcome.
I've been in this riding for 3 years, Toronto St. Paul's, and I'm surprised and I'm kind of happy.
I voted Liberal my whole life, so it's the end of a Trudeau era for sure.
When Stewart addressed supporters at his election party Monday night, votes were still being counted and he was trailing.
You know, we're not there yet, but the night is still young.
It wasn't until almost 4 a.m. the final tally showed Stewart had won, beating Liberal candidate Leslie Church by 590 votes, ending 3 decades of a Liberal stronghold in the riding.
This was obviously not the result we wanted, but I want to be clear that I hear people's concerns and frustrations. These are not easy times, and it's clear that I and my entire Liberal team have much more work to do to deliver tangible, real progress.
Church shared this message, saying she is disappointed by the result and that it shows voters want the Liberals to re-earn their trust, adding that in the next election, she plans to be the Liberal candidate. Meanwhile, Stewart has not made himself available to CTV News for an interview, only posting this picture on social media thanking his constituents.
Last night's results, it shows much more the country's in play than people thought was, and that Pierre Poilievre's message is resonating.
This is the first seat the Conservatives have won in Toronto proper since 2011, which political analysts feel could prompt the Prime Minister to reevaluate his leadership.
Will he spend the summer reflecting on his future? Will he be as shocked by this result as so many others? And will it cause him to think, you know what, I'm not gonna take my party down to the bottom of the well in this way.
More questions for Trudeau and his party. The nearly 85,000 registered electors in the riding, 43% came out to vote. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. I'll send it back to you both in studio.
Right, thank you, Rahim. Well, since the closure of the Ontario Science Centre Friday, many have weighed in questioning whether the Toronto attraction really had to close so suddenly.
Some are even putting their money where their mouth is. The latest offer, $1 million from a family hoping the cash could be a stopgap to keep the doors open temporarily and the beloved programs going. When Sabina Vora Miller and her 7-year-old son were at the Ontario Science Centre last week, they had no idea this would be their last visit ever.
First, we can see that there was repairs that needed to be done at the Science Centre, but it didn't look like it was that grave.
Shocked by the abrupt closure, the Toronto philanthropist who runs a foundation with her husband did some digging into the matter. They're offering $1 million for repairs to the roof to keep the site open for at least the summer.
And we realized actually the amount is minuscule, and that is absolutely something our foundation can support. And we do that already. We support a lot of STEM-related activities in the city, especially for underserved communities, and this is right up our alley.
The Ontario government is aware of several offers to help keep the doors open, and in response, a spokesperson for the Minister of Infrastructure says the independent engineering report from Rimkus Consulting Group clearly states that to mitigate all risks associated with rack, a type of concrete no longer used, it is recommended that all roof panels be replaced in their entirety with new steel deck in alignment with the next roofing assembly renewal. The province pegs the potential cost at between $22 to $40 million, requiring a more than 2-year closure, saying it would still not be open for the summer. The province adding when you consider the other critical repairs to the site, the full capital investment to address the infrastructure would be at least $478 million. Reasoning critics aren't willing to accept.
I understand that there's going to be $1 billion renovation on Queen's Park, and that building is more than twice as old. So why are we spending it on a building to house politicians when we can spend it on a building to educate our children?
The Premier to make a decision to shut the Ontario Science Centre down without any notice when the engineering report itself doesn't call for shutting down the Ontario Science Centre is outrageous.
The new relocated Science Centre at Ontario Place won't be complete until as early as 2028. In the interim, the province says they're exploring opportunities for alternative science programming. But as far as Vora Miller is concerned,
there is no plan on the interim. What's happening for the next 4 to 5 years? Where did the children go?
The city provided an update this morning on the master plan for Toronto Island Park. Officials spoke, offering details from a report on the proposed plan that will be presented to City Council next month. There are 6 goals designed to bind together the vision and values of the master plan. They include revealing an Indigenous place, elevating equity and belonging, supporting the natural environment, celebrating LGBTQ2S+ significance, improving visitor experience, and improving access and connection.
The Toronto Island Master Plan focuses on the 600 acres of the island designated as parkland, including all the ferry landings and the Jack Layton Ferry Terminal. The proposed 5-year progress reports will allow the master plan to adapt to new opportunities and changing needs of these surrounding lands, the community of users, and the city at large.
Enhancing the visitor experience is a goal that runs throughout the recommendations we're speaking about today. Physical improvements at the landings and at the terminal are one way in which we can bring a better visitor experience. Equally, better information online and other ways of communicating the opportunities, the travel schedule, sharing that with both tourists and visitors and residents alike. Improving the food and beverage options on the island was a priority flagged to us by many throughout the consultation, and it forms an important part of the master plan, including the idea of expanding the enjoyment and use of the island for 4 seasons.
The report will be presented to the Infrastructure and Environment Committee next Tuesday and then Council July 24th.
The Toronto Youth Cabinet is holding a town hall to address concerns in the wake of recent gun violence in the city.
Organizers say the meeting taking place tonight will provide a platform for youth to share their experiences and possible solutions to a troubling trend. CTV's John Musselman is live. He joins us with more on this. John.
Well, Michelle, the meeting just got underway at 6 o'clock tonight. There's a number of activists, community people inside the Rexdale Community Hub here tonight to talk about this issue. And as everyone is well aware, there was a mass shooting not far from this location where 2 men were killed. A 14-year-old was arrested in connection with that case. And that shooting that Sean was talking about was just a block away from where this meeting is being held tonight to talk about this issue. We did have a chance to speak to the organizer of this event beforehand to talk about what are some of the problems and, more importantly, what are some of the solutions here to curb the gun violence in neighborhoods like this.
It breaks my heart how young the individuals are, as well as how brazen the acts have been. Most importantly, I could be a victim. I think that's the part that really hurts my heart. Is like I can be a victim, and the situation that we're seeing in the city of Toronto has become out of control once again due to purposeful disinvestment by our government. And so it breaks my heart that this can be preventable. We don't have to be here, but we're here due to lack of investments and lack of action by our government.
So we're going to go into the meeting and hear what people have to say, talk to them about this issue and what can be done and what are some of the solutions. And we'll have much more on this story tonight on CTV News at 11:30. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. Send it back to you.
Thank you, John. In the Middle East, Gaza health officials said at least 45 Palestinians were killed across the territory today. In Gaza City, medics and health officials say Israeli forces killed at least 24 people in 3 separate airstrikes. Officials say a house was hit as well as 2 schools. Israel says it struck militants and insists Hamas was operating inside the school compounds. The group denies using civilian facilities for military purposes. In Khan Yunis, medics said 7 Palestinians were killed and several others were injured at a tent camp.
The UN has reportedly told Israel it will suspend aid operations across Gaza unless urgent measures are taken to better protect humanitarian workers. A letter sent to Israeli officials this month says UN workers must be provided with direct communication with Israeli forces on the ground, among other steps. Talks are ongoing, and there's been no final decision from the UN on suspending operations. Meanwhile, the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency says it's becoming more difficult to deliver aid because of a near breakdown of law and order. UNRWA blames the reason in part to an increase in gangs who are attacking aid trucks looking for smuggled cigarettes. There's also a major shortage of gasoline.
The Canadian government has announced further measures against Hamas. Ottawa is sanctioning 9 individuals and 2 financial entities it says took part in the October 7th attacks on Israel. The government is also once again urging Canadians to leave Lebanon while commercial flights are still available. Foreign Affairs says the security situation could deteriorate further without warning due to the escalating violence between Hezbollah and Israel. And that could affect Canada's capacity to provide consular services. Assisted departures or evacuations are not currently being offered.
The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Russia's former defense minister and a leading general. The warrants were issued over strikes on Ukrainian power infrastructure in 2022 and 2023. The court said they're suspected of having committed war crimes and crimes against humanity for directing attacks against civilians and civilian objects. The move was welcomed by Kyiv but dismissed as legally meaningless by Moscow. The ICC relies on member states to make arrests, so it's unclear if any of the now 8 Russian suspects will ever stand trial.
The first UN-backed contingent of foreign police arrived in Haiti today. A couple hundred officers from Kenya landed in the capital. It wasn't immediately known what their first assignment will be, but they will face violent gangs that control 80% of the capital and have left more than 580,000 people homeless as they pillage neighborhoods in a bid to control more territory. Haiti urgently requested help to quell the surge in gang violence nearly 2 years ago.
In the U.S., the Surgeon General has declared gun violence a public health crisis.
Many people I talk to around the country worry that this may be an intractable problem, that there's no way to solve it. That is not true. Thankfully, we have a series of steps we can take as a country to address it, and my hope is that this advisory will help increase the urgency of us doing so.
Vivek Murphy says gun violence is the leading cause of death among kids and teens in the U.S. He's calling for a ban on automatic rifles, universal background checks, regulating the industry, and laws that would penalize people who don't safely store their weapons. But none of those suggestions can be implemented nationwide without congressional approval.
Julian Assange is due to plead guilty tomorrow to violating U.S. espionage law. The deal will set him free and allow the WikiLeaks founder to return home to Australia. Assange will plead guilty to a single count of conspiring to obtain and disclose classified national defense documents. He's due to be sentenced to 62 months of time already served. Assange has spent more than 5 years in a British high-security jail and 7 holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London following WikiLeaks' mass release of secret American documents. Assange's wife Stella says he will seek a pardon.
An update now on Princess Anne after she suffered a head injury on the weekend. The Princess Royal's husband says she's recovering in hospital and expressed gratitude to the medical team and support staff there for their expert care, as well as emergency services who responded Sunday. The princess suffered minor injuries and a concussion during the incident at her home. She's expected to return this week, but has been advised to cancel a planned visit to Newfoundland.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, the warm weather continues, and if you have a car that is parked in the hot sun, you know how warm it can be when you get in. If you want to cool down fast, is cranking your air conditioning the best way to do it? We have some advice. All of that story just ahead.
And speaking of the warmth, we have a relatively warm night ahead of us. If you want to get out and get active, maybe you're playing intramural sports, you're just going for a walk, it'll stay in the 20s as we head in towards 11 p.m. and we still have a humidex that we are dealing with, so bring water with you. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we wrap up the month of June. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
We all know the feeling of getting into a car that's been parked outside on a hot day. The inside can be stifling and uncomfortable.
You want to cool your vehicle down fast, but is cranking the air conditioning on high really the best way to do it? Here's Pat Foran on Consumer Alert.
Eventually, you'll want to turn up your air conditioning, but there are some steps you should take first. They can help your car cool down faster, and it's also a more fuel-efficient way to operate your AC. Need to cool down your vehicle quickly? Despite what you might think, this isn't the time to use your car's automatic start. That's according to Consumer Reports.
Your car's air conditioning works much better when you're actually driving, because the faster the engine turns, the faster the AC compressor runs, which lets the system cool more effectively.
It's also more efficient since the engine will use less fuel. Once you hit the road, turn on the air conditioner and open all the windows for 10 to 20 seconds. Crank the fan. Once cold air starts flowing through the vents, roll up the front windows, but keep the rear ones cracked open for another 10 to 20 seconds. This pulls cold air to the back of the car. If you have passengers in the back seat, turn off recirculation mode so the air in the back doesn't get stale and hot. Then
adjust the AC temperature to its lowest setting and make adjustments to the fan speed and direction to keep you comfortable. This will actually make the AC efficient, will dry out the air more, and can save some fuel.
Another tip, if you're stuck in stop-and-go traffic and you've got a newer car with an auto start-stop system, you may want to turn it off. While the feature saves fuel by shutting off the engine when you're stopped, it may also shut off the car's AC compressor, which you'll need to keep cool. And just as you should check and change filters at home, you should also check your car's cabin air filter and make sure it's clean. A dirty filter prevents optimal airflow, and replacing them is fairly inexpensive and something you can even do yourself. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, at least today, a hot car, not that big of an issue. It's still important to know.
It would have been awful last week. Was it last week? Yeah, but
It feels like so long ago.
I know. It's amazing how little bit of change in temperature, and you're like, oh, this is a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. We are seasonal. We're still dealing with humidex value, so the temperature inside your car is still 10 to 20 degrees warmer. So even though we are cooler, just be careful getting into the car. But we are settling into the end of June with a really beautiful and very seasonal stretch of weather. A little unsettled today and tomorrow, but as we step into the end of the week, a lot of kids wrapping up school, it will be beautiful. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. A bit unsettled throughout the majority of our afternoon, but we are getting a little break right now. We're not completely done with the chance of a shower just yet, but that bit of a downpour we saw kind of mid-afternoon has really pushed its way out as a cold front has exited. The good news is temperature-wise, it stays relatively mild. So if you're looking to head out tonight, maybe you're playing sports outside, your kids are playing sports, it's a beautiful night. A little warm though for some. Right now we're sitting at 26. It feels like 33, so there's that humidex. It's still very much a factor. A little cooler through northern Ontario, but through central and southern portions of the province, it's still pretty warm out there. Tonight, we don't lose a lot of that daytime heating, even with that cold front that came through, because that cloud cover just kind of traps in whatever we built up. So we're sitting at 20. We should be at 15, but there is a little bit of a light breeze tonight. The lingering showers in through eastern Ontario, that's towards Kingston and Ottawa. Now into the day tomorrow, we are relatively seasonal again across the board in that kind of low to mid 20 range, but it still feels into the 30s. So that heat can really sneak up on you because it's not doing that 1-2 punch when you walk out the door. We are watching once again, though, for that chance of a little active weather into the afternoon. So it won't be as defined as it was today, but still a good idea to keep your umbrella handy as another cold front pushes through. But the bulk of this system is going to sit south of the border and really into that southwestern corner. So timing it all out, the rest of our evening really beautiful. We will see maybe a little late day sunshine before the sun sets this evening. Into our Wednesday, if you're up, if you're an early riser, nice and clear, but that cloud cover pushes through. The chance of showers lingers around that kind of late afternoon point through 4:30, but the bulk of that rain really is sitting south of the border, and then it pushes out. Heading into our Thursday, our Friday, high pressure returns, and it is beautiful to spend some time outside before we step into the long weekend. Temperature-wise, again, we're fairly seasonal across the board. Stepping into our Thursday night, it does cool down a little, but we're in that mid-20 range. Even heading into Saturday with a little rain to start off the long weekend, it's not bad. We're still sitting at 25, still quite warm in the evening. Looking ahead to Monday for Canada Day, it's still a little early right now, but right now we're trending towards sunshine, and I will take it. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Also tonight, learning about early detection of stroke at an early age. Elementary school kids are taught the hard and fast rules that can save a life. That's coming up.
A group of elementary school kids are now fast heroes.
That's fast as in recognizing the signs of stroke. Our health reporter Pauline Chan explains.
How can you prevent strokes when you grow up? By eating a lot of candy, by eating healthy and exercising, or by watching TV? Great, eating. Great, you got the answer right. There's your prize.
Students from grade 1 through grade 3 at Thorncliffe Park Public School had an exciting morning showing off their knowledge about stroke and the acronym FAST.
F stands for face. A stands for arm. S stands for speech. T stands for tie.
Those are the things to check if someone's having a stroke. And if you see the signs, it's time to call
911. We had 96 kids today, so super excited about that.
The kids played games to simulate stroke symptoms and created artwork They even got to check out a real ambulance.
Our Toronto Paramedic Services joined us today, and we're hoping to continue to collaborate with them on some prevention and awareness as well.
The Fast Heroes program has been done in other countries, but this is the first time it's been used in Toronto.
The program's been particularly important in the Thorncliffe Park area, where a large part of the community are immigrants, and parents may not know about first aid or the symptoms of stroke.
The awareness of stroke is what helps identify stroke early, and the goal of the program is that if we can get to kids and teach them the symptoms of stroke, they can then talk to their parents about them and increase the awareness of symptoms of stroke overall in the community, which allows to identify strokes earlier, which leads to better outcomes.
9 classes in total participated in the Fast Heroes program, 7 at Thorncliffe Park and 2 at another school. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
A British teenager has become the first young person in the world to receive a brain implant to control epileptic seizures. Oren Nolson was diagnosed with a rare treatment-resistant form of epilepsy at the age of 3. And not a day went by without a seizure. But 10 years later, he's seeing a dramatic decrease. Oren has been fitted with a device to control his seizures. Electrodes send impulses to a hub for the brain's electrical signals. And the stimulation blocks electrical pathways, reducing seizures by 80%. In Oren's case, 3 more children will soon take part in the trial.
After the break, Canada looks for its first win in the Copa America Cup in a clash with Peru as the soccer club takes to the pitch. In Kansas City, we'll have the latest when we return.
What's the word? Forgetful. It's Wellness Wednesday, and a Guinness World Record holder will give us some tips on exercising your brain and improving your memory. CP24 Breakfast, where Toronto gets its everything every morning.
Updating our top stories, an Etobicoke school was sent into hold and secure after shots were fired in the Kipling and Finch Avenue area. That restriction has since been lifted. Police have arrested a 14-year-old boy in connection with the gunfire investigation.
My wife, she came to the balcony and she saw that white car is just bang, bang, and goes away from here.
Toronto police are investigating the circumstances surrounding a shooting on Falstaff Avenue near Jane and Wilson overnight that left 1 man dead. Police have identified the victim as 22-year-old A.J. Simpson.
A major upset victory for the federal Conservatives in a Toronto Liberal stronghold. Don Stewarts emerged the winner in last night's by-election in Toronto St. Paul's.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
In business, economists say it's now less likely the Bank of Canada cuts interest rates next month due to the pace of inflation increasing in May. With more, here's Paul Bagnall from BNN Bloomberg.
The pace of inflation in Canada moved higher in May, causing some economists to say it is now less likely that the Bank of Canada cuts its benchmark interest rate a month from now. The annual pace of inflation in May was 2.9%, StatsCan said this morning. That was up from 2.7% in April. It was also a higher pace of inflation than economists had expected. The Bank of Canada says it wants inflation to decline to an annual pace of 2%, and it's due to make its next rate announcement on July the 24th. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for today. The Canadian dollar rose slightly to trade at 73.24 cents U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude oil fell by 80 cents U.S. per barrel to finish at $80.83 U.S. And Western Canadian Select, the Canadian grade of heavy oil, was priced at $67.32 U.S. per barrel, down 50 cents. As for stock markets, the S&P TSX Composite Index in Toronto closed lower by 60 points, or about 1/4 percentage point, to finish at 21,788 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Paul Bagnall at BNN Bloomberg.
The federal government announced a decision in the last budget to increase the capital gains inclusion rate. And today, the controversial tax change went into effect. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has more on the opposition and what you need to know.
After months of pushback from small businesses, Canadians cashing in on capital gains may now have to pay more in tax.
Politically speaking, you would think there would be some room for maneuvering, but they haven't budged at all, and you've got to think that it's because they really want the revenue.
Starting today, the capital gains inclusion rate for individuals has increased from 50% to 66.7% on gains above $250,000. For small businesses and corporations, 66.7% of all capital gains will now be taxed. After the move was first announced in April, realtors in Ontario's Muskoka region say there was an initial rush to sell cottages.
I'd say somewhere between 15 and 18% more sales at this time of year. It was mainly used as a negotiating point.
The federal government says the move is creating fairness in the tax system, but many small businesses, including doctors who are incorporated, disagree.
There are so many Canadians who already don't have access to a healthcare provider, and so anything that's going to cause any of our physicians to consider not doing family medicine or to decrease their hours is really concerning.
While Ottawa says only 40,000 individuals are expected to make capital gains over $250,000 and pay the higher rate, a recent survey found 1 in 5 Canadians believe they will be affected by the changes over the next 5 years.
We want to tax your retirement 30% more is really offensive.
Gunter Yoakum is one of them. He owns a grain farm just outside Winnipeg and says the change will eat into his retirement savings and make it harder to transfer the family farm to his daughter.
I may have to sell off part of my farm in order to pay down that debt, that tax burden to the government, even though I'm not actually receiving millions of dollars.
The bill cementing this new measure into law isn't expected to be released until sometime later this summer, and some experts believe that gives the government time to make changes. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
The federal Liberals have been paying social media influencers to combat misinformation. Documents tabled in the House of Commons show that since 2021, the government has spent at least $1.7 million on influencers. The health, agriculture, and immigration departments are using influencers to spread government-approved messages, including on COVID-19, vaccination, food safety, and even sexual health. Treasury Board President Anita Anand says the government needs to ensure Canadians get honest, clear, and easy-to-understand messages about what the government does.
Canada is playing Peru right now at the Copa America tournament, with both sides looking for their first win.
Miller into the middle for David. Now Eustachio, Canada moving it quickly. It's Jonathan David who tries to get that ball out to Davies. Hooked away there.
The Group A match is underway in Kansas City. No goals to report yet. Canada's coming off a 2-0 loss to top-ranked Argentina in the tournament opener on Thursday. Peru played to a scoreless draw with Chile on Friday. Our team plays the Chileans on Saturday in Orlando, Florida.
The Hockey Hall of Fame's newest members were announced this afternoon. NHLers Jeremy Roenick, Pavel Datsyuk, and Shea Weber are among the class of 2024. They're joined by women's hockey stars Natalie Darwitz and Chrissy Wendell-Pohl. All elected executives, Colin Campbell and David Poyle, in the Builder category. All 7 will be formally inducted during a ceremony on November 11th.
Tampa Bay Lightning head coach John Cooper will lead Canada at the 2025 Four Nations Face-Off and the 2026 Winter Olympics. It will be Cooper's first time as Canada's head coach since leading the national men's team to a silver medal at the 2017 World Hockey Championship. He's led the Lightning to 4 Stanley Cup finals, including back-to-back titles in 2020 and 21. The Four Nations Face-Off makes its debut next year and will be held February 12th and the 20th in Montreal and Boston.
Canada's golf team for the Paris Olympics is set. Ontario's own Brooke Henderson and Alina Sharp will play in the women's event. The pair were the top Canadians in the world rankings when the qualification window closed. This will be the 3rd Olympics for both Henderson and Sharp. Just ahead, the only festival in the city that celebrates all summer long. TD Union's Music and Food Fest is back. All the delicious details coming up.
Tonight, allegations of an inside job.
Anywhere there is a hole or a gap, organized crime is going to try to capitalize on it.
We uncover potential new tactics used by auto theft rings. We'll have that story and more later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special shout out to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
TD Union Summer is officially underway. The daily festival is taking place at Union Station's Front Street Plaza until August 25th. It offers free outdoor live performances, curated food vendors, and beverages and desserts, all to celebrate summer in the city.
It's our outdoor patio festival. We're here for 60 days straight. We have a curated selection of food vendors, which actually also rotates throughout the summer, so you can always come back and try some more delicious food. But on our TD stage, we have 60 days of amazing dynamic performances, live music, karaoke, activities, and all sorts of really exciting things for people to come and enjoy.
Tonight's official launch party runs from 5 to 8 p.m. Hip-hop superstar Maestro Fresh West is headlining the event, which will also feature live DJs. Shout out to Maestro. That sounds like a lot of fun.
The city just comes alive in the summer, and it's always nice when the weather cooperates. And at least this hour, things are pretty good.
It'll be a pretty decent night. So for Maestro and everybody out there enjoying the kind of kickoff of this event, it'll be beautiful. We are still looking at the chance of rain. We have the right conditions, but the bulk of the activity is pushing its way east, and we have quite a nice night ahead of us for anything you decide to do. Over the last few hours, we saw that shower activity roll through, but it has since pushed out, and we're left with just some cloud cover out there. Still relatively mild, 26, feeling like 33. As we head in towards the day tomorrow, still some unsettled weather, the chance of it midday, but overall, as we wrap up the month of June, it's looking pretty nice.
Thank you so much, Jess. That is it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Natalie Johnson with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.